Welcome to a Touchplan crash course. We're going to get started. We're going to go into the Sandbox. And once we are here in the Sandbox, this is a place that we can play around, do pretty much anything, and everybody knows to pretty much ignore anything coming out of the Sandbox. So down here, we have our dock which for our drafts. And what you can do is you can create a task, a milestone, or a constraint. Let's try starting by creating a task. And you'll notice the role is 192 LSS fire alarm. And that's because I have it preset up here. Anything preset up here will automatically translate into your new tickets. So let's say this is set speakers. We're going to set the speakers. Let's see the location. We can just start typing in MSB. Let's say this is in the high bay. And let's say the current due date is 8/5/2022. And then the activity ID is, let's just say it's LS12345. And we mainly get our activity ID from the P6. So that's kind of helpful. We're going to set the crew to 0 for now. And let's say we know this takes 60 hours to do. So we're going to just set it to 6 days. And the foreman, we know that this is all of Jim's stuff. So we can save that. And now that ticket's ready to go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of store these to the right of the activity line. This is kind of a nice place just to get them ready. We can put them right here in Jim's swim lane. So get all of these taken over. Perfect. So now let's say this one we know is coming up. We need to have it done. It's going to be around the 5th. So we're going to drag it over into the active area, and then we're going to set it down, and we can zoom in. We can see right now we're at August 6th to August 12th. There we go. Now we're at August 5th through August 12th. Perfect. We can click on this. We can see, oh, it's going to start here, and then these 2 days are off, and then it's just going to keep going. But let's say, hey, this really needs to get done. Let's start it on a Saturday. So we're going to click this button here. Now Saturday is active, and it cuts off one of the lines at the end. So that is very, very handy. And then we can save that. Now, let's say we know that it's going to take 2 people, and it's going to take them 3 days. So we can set it down to 3 days at 2 people. And then we can save it. So now we're working on Saturday, and we're working on Monday just to get this done. So that is kind of a nice handy feature. Now, let's say everything's ready. All the foremen are ready. Bob, Jim, and Sally. What we can do is we can promise this period right now. And what you can do is you can make the period bigger, or you can make the period smaller. You can move it around just like that. So let's promise this now. Are you sure? Yes, we want to promise this. And notice how it put pins and everything. So that's kind of a handy feature. Now, let's say this is a predecessor for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this rough end. And this rough end's already been moved a little bit. But we're going to click on that. And then we're going to right click on this. We're going to set it as a predecessor. So now this is linked. And also, so you can save that. And then also, while you're here, if you want to see kind of what's been going on with this, you can see that it's been promised and things have been missed. So it keeps track of that. That's just by clicking this pin here. So Just cancel out of that. So that's perfect. Now let's say this. Let's update the status. And let's say it got done. Let's say on the 3rd to Friday. Perfect. Done. And then what they did is they marked it with a blue pin. Blue pins mean that it was done early. And then you can set a variance reason. And let's say the variance reason is a schedule change. So they needed that change. So then you can save it and now it's done. So that's kind of a handy thing to have. And let's say this is moved over here. So now it highlights this in red and it has a red arrow pointing to it that these are out of sequence. So that needs to be changed or something needs to move. That's just a very good indicator to let you know that something is going on here. And then let's say this moves out a day. Oh, well, it moved out a day. Why did it move out a day? Well, maybe we had a shift in the priority. Save that. And then it's been moved, but it's also been pinned. So now when you open this, click on that. You see that variance reason. It's just a good way to track how things are going and moving along. Now, your swim lanes, you can move them, change them. You can change the color by clicking on here. Kind of nice. I like having alternating colors. Kind of nice. So then you know where you are. If you're going to move your swim lane up and down, let's say Sally, include the ticket. So now when I click here, drag up and down, it's moving the tickets right along with Sally. So let's say we move her down, save it, and then let's say Jim needs a bigger swim lane, and then we can move just like this. So just like that. That's kind of how the swim lanes work. And you can add a swim lane by going up here to the plan action and then adding the swim lane. So that's also another handy feature. If you do a big whoops, you can undo your changes. And that's also another handy feature to know of. In your settings, you know how I was talking about how Saturday was a day off and somebody was working Saturday? You can change the role. So like right here, let's say for the 160 electrical lighting, we can change it. So let's say they don't work on Monday, but they work Tuesday through Saturday. So you can change that and then you can save it. So that's kind of handy. You can add something, click here, let's just say Kiowa right here, and then you can change it to whatever you want and then you can add that. You can also delete it. So that's kind of how that works. So also you can add custom fields in the settings, which is kind of nice, whether it's a task, a milestone, or a constraint. So that feature is there also. You can do snapshots. So I like to every week come into the plan and make a snapshot, save the current snapshot, and just enter a name. I usually call it whatever the date is, 8/3/2022. And then save it, and then we have it. So going down the line, there's a big whoops. We can change that and go back to this current state, which is really great. Now, also, if you want to move this active line, you can click on that. And then what you can do is you can say, hey, I'm going to move this to September 9th. And then what it's going to do is it's going to think, and it's going to move the active line over, but it's also going to keep all of your tickets that were to the right of the active line still to the right of the active line. They recently did this feature. It's much nicer. We've had a couple whoops in the past, and now that has been addressed. So let's see, we can add locations. So you can add a location, save it, assign it a color. That's really easy. Roles, you can add a role. We pretty much have a default here of all of these. So, but you can add a new role and you can assign it a color as well. It'll come up in the drop down menu. You can see who is members and you can see who has admin access. So here's myself and I have admin access. You can add a new member, you type in their email, you can put in their role, and you can specify whether they have admin access or not, and then save that, and it will send them an email notification, and then they can create their Touchplan account. We can also go here to constraints, and we can show constraints from this plan only. And this is very handy. We can just kind of go down, click, you can make changes, you can make different notes. So you can just say, need update as of 8/3/2022. And you can add that note and then you can save the changes. And that is pretty much the constraints in a nutshell. It's very handy. You can sort it by different priorities. You can go ascending or descending, whichever meets your needs. And let's see if there's anything else that needs to be covered. So I think that's about it. Let's just look at the constraints really quick. So you have to have a requested by. You don't have to have a location. I recommend it. You need to have your description. You need to assign it to somebody. It has to be assigned to somebody. And then you need to do a need by date. And then usually the constraints, we usually have that as a predecessor to something else. Also, let's take a quick look at the milestones. This can be like a go live date for the speaker loops, whatever you want. Again, don't have to have a location. I highly recommend a location. And then you can have your foreman and then the description. And usually for our format, what we've been doing is we've been doing the description of it, followed by the current due date, followed by an activity ID from P6. And that pretty much sums everything up in a quick nutshell. Please let me know if you have any more questions, and thank you for watching. Take care.